Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Attorney General Becerra. Senator Bell just, in the concluding remarks, started to address some where I've already been before. We're both a little older, but in 1997, the Attorney General for the state of Mississippi, Mr. Michael Moore, was successful in garnering the National Tobacco Settlement. And Attorney General Dan Lundgren was involved at that time, but it created a revenue stream, sort of an annuity to all those that were benefiting from the settlement. And so those are some of the questions I'd like to just put before you. I'll just lay them on the table. You can take them one at a time or however you want to address them. But I want to know if you're working on a settlement that's a lump sum or if it is an annuity. And then you've already kind of addressed how it will be appropriated with the 15-70-15 plan, but I'm concerned about misappropriation. The state of California received its share of the settlement, so did all the counties in California. But the state, through then Governor Davis, took that revenue stream, securitized it, and issued a bond to balance the budget. And so that money didn't go to programs like Senator Bell was referring to. Most of it was eaten up in principal and interest. So it was, I think, misappropriated. It was not used for what it was supposed to. So I'd like to know what kind of protections you're putting into the settlement so that it does go where it's supposed to go. And then since we're using abatement programs, we need to make sure that we use it for abatement programs. And then my last question, it might be a question for the chair. We have two separate, very distinct subjects in this bill. And I'm just wondering why shouldn't a bill kind of be single subject as opposed to settlement, team building versus fish and game? And I'm just trying to maybe get an explanation on that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Attorney General.
Senator Moorlach, first, thank you for the question. And I almost get the impression that you've been inside our negotiations because you raised some of the points that were raised very early on by a lot of folks who were, to some degree, dissatisfied with the way the tobacco settlement rolled out. And lessons learned. A lot of folks said they learned a lot about how to deal with massive settlements that way that brought large pots of money to each jurisdiction and how to make sure it actually got used. That's why we started from the premise that 100% of the funds must go into opioids. Some of the jurisdictions and states said, well, we got to have a little bit of flexibility because opioids may have caused a lack of educational opportunity for kids. And we'd like to get the kids of the parents who died from opioids to know that they're still going to have a chance for a good education. Or opioids has caused increased crime in some of our communities. And a lot of our law enforcement agencies have been taxed dealing with that drug addiction. And we should compensate those who protected people during this crisis. And so that's why you saw the 15% and 15% share for the locals and the states. It still has to be used for opioids. It has to be related to opioids, but it has a little bit more discretion on what we would define as still tackling the consequences of opioid addiction. But 70% of the funds, opioids. And who decides? It's not the state. It will be all those players, the stakeholders, the plaintiffs, local governments, county cities, and the state coming together and working out the arrangement. And so will it be a lump sum? Will it be an annuity? Will it be only directed to programs, specified program? That will be up to those government leaders sitting down deciding how California will allocate that 70% share, and only that way. And in terms of any misappropriation, and again, I think here's where the concern is by the local governments that the state may use that money in ways that were not expected. They're at the table. In this settlement agreement, it was clear from the very get-go, they will be at the table. Most of those 3,500 lawsuits clearly are not the states. There are only 50 states. It's mostly cities and counties. And quite honestly, it's the counties that count the most because in most places, certainly in California, it's the counties who provide public health, mental health, all the healthcare services. And so they will be at the table. And this bill AB6 does not determine or direct how those dollars will be allocated. That is only through the settlement. And so this bill, all it does is try to get us to move to get those dollars, because we'll fall way behind if we can't guarantee that in California, those defendants can let go of those dollars they've committed for those programs. And the less that they can let go because they don't have the liability relief that they need, the less we'll be able to do with the funds that are there.
Thank you. Madam Chair, what about the question of single subject?
LAO or Finance, would either of you like to respond?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
We can. Give us your name so they can find you and get you on the screen.
This is Aaron Edwards with the Department of Finance.
Thank you.
In terms of the single subject issue, I don't have any comments on that. Given that this is a ledge proposal, I would defer to the LAO if they have thoughts.
Anyone from the LAO?
This is Anita Lee with the LAO. I don't think this is a ledge proposal, and we would defer to the legislature in terms of the choice in terms of what to include. So we don't have anything to add.
So, Madam Chair, we're getting, pulled from a lot of sides. I've got counties that are opposed to this bill. I've got district attorneys that support it. So I'm a little concerned. Obviously, sort of short notice and getting inundated. But it would seem that if this would have been two bills, that would have at least resolved one part of the equation. I'll keep listening to the other questions and testimony and to witnesses that call. Thank you, Madam Chair, for letting me participate.